Bienvenue. Les aventures de Frank et Ben. 6e série. Frank and Ben go on a picnic with Ruth and Sally. 3e histoire. Frank and Ben go on a picnic. Part 3. I have an idea, says Sally. Let's have a picnic. We still have plenty of time, don't you think? After all, it's only 11 o'clock, so if we hurry, we could have the picnic around 1. But of course we need some food and some plates and utensils. I hope you have some food in the house. If not, we'll have to do some shopping. Well, what do you think? Is it a good idea or not? I think it's a great idea, Ben says. Trust Sally to come up with an idea like that. She always has great ideas because she has a father who is a scientist and a mother who is an artist. Her father taught her one way of thinking and her mother another. Are you saying that I don't have great ideas? Frank says to Ben. It so happens that Blood River is the most popular place in the whole region for picnics. After all, there's a hill out there that is very prominent and gives you a good view in all directions. There's also an immense grassy area with a lot of picnic tables and shady trees. Only a person who didn't have a car would think of going anywhere else but Blood River. What's the matter with you, Ruth? Sally asks. Why are you holding your head? I think I have a headache. I may have to take something for it. What do you need? Asks Frank. Some aspirin? Do you have anything else? I need something a bit stronger. As a matter of fact, I do. I'll get it right now. Frank then leaves the room. What a friend you have there, Ruth says to Ben. Once he has an idea in his head, he can't let it go. May I speak frankly? May I say something about Frank I've noticed right from the very beginning? From the time Sally and I first met you and Frank in your brother's apartment? He doesn't have the maturity that you have. He doesn't have the same sense of when to give way on a matter. After all, it's not necessary to win all arguments or disputes. Some are more important than others, and some can be lost without anyone being hurt. Often it's the case that giving way on some small point can be a kind and thoughtful thing. I see your point, and I think you're right in one way, says Ben, but in another way, I think you're wrong. If having maturity also means being trustworthy, conscientious, loyal, and many other things, then Frank is more mature than most people. He never says something and then does the opposite. He never tells you one thing and then does another. He always speaks his mind and lets a person know where he stands. If sometimes he's stubborn on this or that point, well, aren't we all? 20 minutes later, Ruth and Sally are with Ben in his car. They are headed for Blood River. At the same time, Frank is driving his car. He is following them down the road. In the car with him is Bowser. Like Ruth, Sally, and Ben, Frank is headed for Blood River to have a picnic. I love to look out the window of a car and see the countryside, says Ruth. It's so relaxing. Yes, it certainly is, says Ben. Oh, look, do you see the horses in the field? They belong to a cousin of mine. They're beautiful, exclaims Sally. Are they race horses? They sure are, answers Ben. One of them runs at some very well-known racetracks in the United States and wins a lot of money. Does your Uncle Bob, who lives out in Western Canada, own racehorses? Asks Ruth. No, he doesn't, answers Ben, but he sure spends a lot of time and money betting at the track. What does he do for a living? Asks Sally. I thought you said he owned a ranch. He does own a ranch, answers Ben, but for beef cattle only. The only horses he has on the ranch are used for riding. One is a palomino and the other is a pinto. Let's play a game, Ruth says all of a sudden. I spy with my little eye something that starts with C. Wait a second, exclaims Ben. How can we play a game like that? How can we play a game that requires looking around for something in the car? How can we do that while I'm driving and forced to keep my eyes on the road? Oh, we play it all the time ourselves in the car, says Ruth. Don't be such a spoil sport. When Sally and I take a drive in either her or my car, we look for things outside the window. When we see something very big like a barn or a cornfield, then we say, I spy with my little eye. All right, if you put it that way, I have no choice. I have to go along with you. As you know, I'm a much more agreeable person than Frank. Frank always tries to put a spoke in the wheel. He always finds ways to raise objections or to create problems. But I'm an easy sort of guy. I take things as they come. We both know that about you, says Sally. That's why we like you. Now, because you're such a nice guy, we'll let you go first. You start the game. All right, says Ben. I spy with my little eye something that starts with C. Well, it so happens that I see a cornfield on my right, says Ruth. Is that what it is? No, answers Ben. It's not as big as a cornfield, but it's in a field, and there are many of them. Well, that's too easy, shouts Sally. Right on the left is a herd of cows. That must be the right answer. Well, not exactly, says Ben. You see, I had a different word in mind. Could that word be cattle? Ruth asks. That's right, says Ben. Now it's your turn. Oh, look, says Ruth suddenly. Do you see that hawk circling high up in the air? What a sight, says Sally. That reminds me of a question that came up in a quiz. Do hawks eat field mice? Oh man, says Ben. Do fish swim in water? Of course they do. Do they live in the forest or do they live high up in the mountains? She then asks. Why do you ask such dumb questions? Ruth asks her. Why do you care whether a hawk lives in the forest or in the mountains? Because the person who the TV host calls next will be asked this question, and if they get it right, they'll win $1 million. Now tell me, do hawks live in the forest or in the mountains? Let's continue with the game, says Ruth. It's my turn. I spy with my little eye something that starts with H. Oh, that's too easy, says Ben. You must be thinking of the hawk. Well, try again, smarty, because it's not that. She's looking high up into the sky, Sally then says. She must mean heaven. You're right, says Ruth. Good guess. Wait a second, Ben objects. That's not a real thing. You can't say heaven because you can't see it. It's not the same as saying sky or sun. How can I guess something that I can't see? Sally, who is sitting close to Ben in the front seat, now looks at him sternly and says, Are you raising objection to the way we play the game? Are you being like Frank? Do we have to tell you to stop this car and then have you get out? Do you want to be with him and Bowser? Do you want Ruth or I to take over the wheel of this car?